They dilute the orange juice with water, and then they add a lot of stevia to trick you into not noticing that you're basically drinking watered down orange juice that, yes, has half the calories of regular orange juice, but has no flavor. They were awful, to put it mildly. And so awful, I decided not to subject you to low-calorie orange juice.
Thank you, Jack. I'm having trouble with these. I don't love any of these, and I would think that you might get some floral, tropical. I mean, real orange juice has a lot of different flavors. This is the worst, and this is the best. And the other two, I don't know.
All right. Well, would you like to see at least what you thought was the best?
Yes, I would.
You agreed with the tasting panel. This is the Natalie's. This is the one that the processing is closest to natural. We thought it had a fresher flavor compared to the others. It's not like fresh squeezed orange juice.
No, it's a little fuller flavor, but it's not really complicated. Now, this one I thought was the worst. I don't know.
That was actually the runaround. This is Simply Orange. It's one of these pretty engineered products. We thought it was not a bad choice. It wasn't super enthusiastic response from the tasting panel.
And the other two?
This is frozen concentrate. See, you really couldn't tell the difference.
No.
I mean, the thing is, those chilled juices are not necessarily a whole lot better than the frozen concentrate.
And this one?
This is the Tropicana, which was the least favorite among the chilled juices in the tasting.
So the winner, not by a mile, but the winner was Natalie's 100% pure, fresh squeezed orange juice. You probably know the expression, to the manor born, and that describes me to a T when it comes to Downton Abbey. I love the cars, the dogs, the library, of course, tea itself in the afternoon. Now, a proper British scone is reserved and cake-like and tender. Nothing like what we get here in this country. Bigger than your head scones, full of fat and sugar, much too much. So let's go into the test kitchen with Julia, figure out how to make a proper British currant scone that is cake-like and tender. Something so good, even Mrs. Patmore would be proud to serve it. About 20 years ago, I was in London. I went to Brown's Hotel and had tea. Actually, it's called low tea, not high. Low tea is all the food.
Oh.
Yeah. But the scones, or scones as you call them, they were small and they weren't that high. And they were so different than what I'm used to here. And sometimes the British actually do it better.
Yep.
And they do scones better. So we're going to try to figure out how they do it.
That's right. Yeah, if you put an American scone recipe and a British scone recipe side by side, you'll notice some big differences, starting with the flour. Most British scones start with self-raising flour, which is all-purpose flour with some leavener mixed in. And so if you translate that over here to America, you might think self-rising flour, but that's a different bird altogether. We found out all-purpose flour with a lot of leavener, and we did some tests as to how much leavener. For 3 cups of flour, we're going to use 2 tablespoons of baking powder.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. But that gives the scones the cakey texture and a nice tall rise, which is traditional. So we're going to use a food processor to build our scone dough. And I'm going to add the 3 cups of all-purpose flour and the 2 tablespoons of baking powder. Now, if you compare those recipes again, you'd also notice that the British scones have a lot less sugar. If this were an American scone recipe, this bowl would be a lot more full. You'd have 2 or 3 times the amount of sugar. For this recipe, just 1/3 of a cup.
That's because they use all the sugar in their tea.
That's right. And we are going to add a little bit of salt. This is a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And now we're just going to pulse these ingredients together for about 5 pulses. All right, and now it's time to add the butter. And here's another big difference from American scones to British scones. This bowl would be a lot more full if it was an American scone because we like those rich, hearty, heavy scones. British scone, less butter, less rich, and the butter is a lot more soft. With softened butter, you get that cakey texture. So this is just a stick of butter, 8 tablespoons. And we're going to pulse it in really thoroughly. Again, that's another change. We're not going to see any bits of butter left over. We're going to incorporate it completely. And that takes about 20 pulses. All right, let's take a look here. And what we're looking for is nothing, no clumps of butter. The butter's been nice and evenly distributed, and you see no big pieces of anything. So now we're going to transfer this to a nice large bowl. So now we're going to add some currants, and this is just 3/4 of a cup of currants, and the currants, of course, nice and small. And that's pretty traditional for a British scone. We're just going to stir those in so they're nice and evenly distributed before we add the liquid. All right, so now it's time to add the liquids. And we're going to add 2 eggs and a cup of milk. And I'm just going to whisk these together before adding them to the bowl. And I'm also going to reserve 2 tablespoons of this to brush over the scones just before baking so they get a little glossy. Now we're going to add the liquid to the bowl of dry ingredients. And using a stiff rubber spatula, we're just going to stir and fold in the liquid ingredients until this forms a dough. All right, so you're looking for no more floury bits on the bottom of the bowl. There we go. And notice I am not being gentle with this dough. Actually, we're going to put it on the counter and knead it for a good 25 to 30 times. And that will help build some gluten structure so you get nice, tall scones. All right, so that's pretty good. It's a nice, smooth dough. And now we're going to roll it out to a 9-inch round, about 1 inch thick.
That looks so good.
It does.
Doesn't it?
It looks pretty perfect, actually. If I say so
Don't get carried away. I
myself.
mean, come on.
So there we have about 9-inch circle. You can see it's about 1 inch thick. And now I'm just going to use a 2.5-inch cutter. I'm going to put them right on the baking sheet as I cut them out. And of course, I'm going to repeatedly dip the cutter in flour. That will help it prevent from sticking in the dough. All right, so that's 8 scones out of the first go around. And here, we'll put these on the tray.
They look fabulous.
All right, so we're going to take these scraps, we're going to knead them together again and punch out 4 more scones. And the re-kneading of these scraps doesn't make the second batch of scones any inferior. So that should do it. You don't want to have too much left over, but you want to make sure you have enough to cut out proper scones. And the last one. Now, unfortunately, we do have a little bit of scrapped dough left over, so there's just a little bit of waste. All right, so these are ready for the oven. We're going to quickly brush them with this reserved egg and milk mixture. Now, we're going to bake them in a really hot oven because the hot oven will help give these scones some oven spring, much like when you make bread, to make them nice and tall. I've been heating the oven up at 500 degrees, but I'm going to put the scones in and turn the oven down to 425 for the baking. And these will bake through in about 10 to 12 minutes. All right, so these are gorgeous, first off.
They are gorgeous, and that's a true statement.
Yep, so they baked for, again, 10 to 12 minutes, and you can tell they're done because they're golden on the top, obviously, but also you can see they're nice and golden on the bottom, and that's how you know they're done. And they've been resting here for about 10 minutes, so they're not too hot. We have some butter, some clotted cream, and some jam, as you requested.
Not that sweet, which is nice because that's why the strawberry
that's
jam tastes
good.
great. And there's not a lot of fat in it, and that's why the clotted cream tastes great.
Yeah.
So we're making up for it on top.
Well, the texture is so nice and light and cakey.
So for a great British-style currant scone, we did 2 things. We made our own self-rising flour with 2 tablespoons of baking powder, which is quite a lot, and 3 cups of flour. We also use a lot less fat, less butter, but it was softened and cut into the flour so it protects the flour for a nice cakey texture. Finally, we started with a 500-degree oven, which is very high. Put them in, lowered the heat to 425 for 10 to 12 minutes. So from America's Test Kitchen to your kitchen, something from the old country, at least one of the old countries, a British-style currant scones. Delicious. You can get this recipe, all the recipes from the season, get our equipment ratings, our taste tests, and watch select episodes of this show, of course, all at americastestkitchen.com.